Okay, so today we'll talk about attributes or supported attributes, like what all attributes are supported in Aura. So first is naming rules to declare the attributes. So there are two naming rules, naming conventions which we call. When we are declaring the attribute, it must begin with a letter or an underscore. Either you can put underscore before that letter, or you can start with letter. You cannot start with dot or some uh, any other symbol. It must contain only alphanumeric or underscore characters when you are declaring any attribute, any variable. What all like, let's say when you are defining any or attribute, what all other types you can define, like let's say in types we have a decimal, we have integer, we have like number, we have string, we have object type, we have wrapper type, class type as well, all along those. So what all other attributes we can put, like we can define the accessibility. By default accessibility is public, but we can restrict it, we can put private, we can put global as well. We can give name, type, default, required, description, and these are the types. Let's say when you are defining the or creating any attribute depending on your need, you can create attribute of boolean type, date time, decimal, double, integer, long, string. All these type of fields you can declare. A part of this, we can define the attribute of object type. We can use both custom or standard object in that. We can define attribute of collection type. Let's say you want to deal with the collection means list of account or list of contact, you can define that. And you can define the attribute of your class type, means either your main class or your wrapper class as well. You can define any kind of attribute. That is the component access level or access control, which we can either our component can be public or can be global. Similarly goes with attribute, it can be private, public, global. And event can be public and global. So I'll talk about the event in next session. So we have already seen that how to create the input form to create the record, to insert the records. Similarly, as I have demonstrated in previous session, to create the account, I have created one account form where I had used all possible ways to send the data from UI component to JS controller, and from JS controller to Apex controller. So we had three approach. We can use either Aura ID, we can use attributes, different attributes, or we can use like object type of attribute to send the data. We have one point label. Let's say if you want to use any label in our component, let's say we have created certain labels and we want to use those labels in our component. So syntax is dollar in formula expression dollar label dot c dot label name, whatever the label name you have. So I hope you know how to create the label. If not, let me show you. uh, Go to your org, setup, find label. So you see there is one option, custom label. Click on custom labels. So custom labels enable developer to create multilingual applications by presenting information, for example help text or error message, to users in their native language. A custom label is a custom text value that can be accessed from Apex class, via pages or lightning component. If translation workbench is enabled for your Salesforce org, you can translate these labels into any language that Salesforce supports. You can create up to 5,000 custom labels, and each label can have up to 1000 characters. So it talked about two things: translation workbench and multilingual support. Means, let's say if you are in India, you know English, that's good. If you want to convert that into a particular language, let's say you are in Russia or US, so it or Salesforce provide the local language support as well. So for that, what we do, we like enable the multilingual, and we create the labels. So it will, we have the translation workbench by which we can translate our labels, whatever we had kept, into a particular language, maybe local language of any country. That is the possibility we have. A part of that, when we are doing some hard code values in our code, so Salesforce suggests, do not hard code anything in your code. If you need to hard code, go to the labels, create the label, and enter that data in your label. Let's say if you need to store the company name, or you need to put in the condition when you are putting the queries, you need to put name equals to any company name. That's a name. We want to find out all the contacts which are under Grovia. So how we put, we will be going to put the query on contact, select ID, name, email, phone from contacts, where account.name equals to Grovia, that is in single quote. So rather than putting that in single quote, create the label, put the company name in label, and then use that in your code. So reason is, let's say when you are doing hard code values, and if someone needs to, or let's say company name is changed, maybe say it happens sometimes, there are certain cases many companies have changed their name or updated something in their names. So if you had put a hard code values in the code, you need to again go to the code and change the value. Then you need to do the deployment from sandbox to production. But on the other hand, if you are using label, that means you just need to replace or update the label, value will automatically reflect, and it will map with the condition. So whenever you think you need to put anything, maybe in condition or any, you need to compare any value, you need to assign any value which can be hard code. So do not hard code that, use label, create the label, put that value in then that label, and then use that into the code. So how to create the label? Click on new custom label. Let's say company name, save it. So that's my label name. As I have shown you here, if you want to use that, these labels, we have dollar label dot c dot label name. Directly I can use that. In my JS, I have this syntax dollar a dot get, then dollar label dot namespace, again c dot label name. In our Apex, if you want to use, let me show you that. I'll directly use system dot debug plus system dot label dot label name. That is like syntax, something like this. We can use that. Let me execute it and debug. So we have got the Grovia here, which we had put. So in Apex, system dot label name, and in Aura $a dot label dot namespace, then label name. In our Aura component directly we can use, we can refer. We can also refer in our JS controller. So whenever you see that somewhere you need to use the hard code values, do not go with hard code values. That is not part of best practice, not the standards. Use proper standards. As I always keep saying, that whenever you are declaring any class, method, variables, use proper naming conventions. That should be descriptive. Similarly, do not hard code anything, any value in your code. Let's move to the next topic.
This conference will now be recorded.
So after labels, let's move to the next topic. System tag references means it has given some certain main tags which we use or we can use in the application when we are building. First is Aura application. So Aura application is the root tag when we create any component, and when we plan, we run that, so we put that component to the application. So when we create the application that starts with our application, inside that application we build or we create or we put our component. Okay, Aura component again is a root tag. Root tag means when we are creating the component, our component will start with Aura component. Similarly, when we create the event, it will start with Aura event. When we create the interface, it will start with the Aura interface. We have another two more things: Aura method, Aura set. So Aura method is another way to call the component parent to child, if you want to call. Another is Aura set. So Aura set use conditionally basically or with the interface. So when we'll see the example of Aura, if an Aura set, I'll show you that we can skip as of now Aura interface. There are certain rules if you are still trying to use Aura set: setting attributes inherited from a super component, setting attributes on a component reference, and setting attributes inherited from an interface. Working with base lightning components or event in base lightning components. So if we talk about events, we have like different ways to use. When you click on any button, that is also part of event. We are firing the event, like we are uh, pressing that is on click event. When we click on the button, we call the JS function. Similarly, when you are typing anything and on change of input or key press, key up, mouse over, below, all these are the events which we use. So how we can use, I have shown you one event yesterday on click, right? I can like let's say one more event, as we have displayed the records, account records for example, and you want to implement the search functionality on that. So let me open that component. Let's display contact record, that was the component. Go to your app. Let's preview this. Okay, so we are getting the data, we are displaying. If you want to perform the search, so we can create one input and we can fire the event. So let's create the input here. Go to the component. So I will add one more tr here, one more row. Lightning input, type will be text. I can use Aura ID directly. Search name. So what all events you can use here, you can see in the documentation whether it supports change or on change or not. go to the specification and check for the event here. Like we have on builder, we have on change, we have on commit, on focus. So let's say we can use on change. That means whenever I will be changing any input, I want to call the function, JS function. I want to fire the event. That is a base event we are talking about: on change, on click, on press, key up, all these events. C dot search contacts. So if you want to create any other method in your component, you need to put comma, then function name. If I do not put the comma, it will give me the error. It won't let me save it. That's my function. If I save it, I will be able to save. If I remove this comma, because it is acting as a separator. Fail to save display contact this. It's saying expecting something, some comma, and we are not giving. So here expecting some comma, which we are not adding. So when I type something, I want to see that input. I'll declare one attribute or a search con equals to, that is the aura id which I had put here. Search name, I'll use the aura id to get the value here. If on change is supported here, as they have mentioned in the documentation, I should get the, this method should be called and I should get the value here. So let's see, let me preview it. We have got this here. Let's put the label in component. Search name or contact, search contact, you can put any name here. There's a label. Search contact. So whenever I type something, I should see the data. Let's inspect it, whether something is coming or not. So we are getting that data here, right? Means I have cleared that. I am typing something again. I'm getting that data, right? So when I'm changing something on the input, I'm firing the event, that is a base event, base lightning event, and I'm calling the JavaScript controller as of now. If I want to perform the search, there can be two ways. You can perform the search on client base if you want to perform only this related data which is displaying on the UI. So I can do at the client side, but if I need to find out from the database, then I have to fire I need to call the server side controller for that. Okay, so in this case I will also teach you how we can use helper, as well. Let's see. So
This conference will now be recorded.
all right, so let's go to your code. we were calling this function here to get the data from database. So what I'll do, I'll put this entire code in my JS, in my JS helper here. And I will call this function from here. How to call the helper function? We use helper keyword or attribute which we have helper dot function name. We have passed two parameters here, so we'll supply the same parameters when we are calling this function. If this is working fine, that means when I load the component, I should be able to see the data here. We are getting the data. So this time we are not making the server call from JS. First we are making the call to the helper, and from the helper we are making call to the server side controller. Let me show you again. So this is the component. When I load my component, by this function will call, it will check and it will get this helper.helper method, and it will again find out, go to the helper and will find out this helper method here. If again I change the name something and try to call, when it will come to the helper to find out that particular name, it won't get that. Let's see. Got the error because it's unable to find out. Now what I'll do, I will pass one parameter here, default, or let's say this function name. I'm passing the parameter, and I'll call the same method here, but here I'll pass this search name. To differentiate both means when I'm loading the component, I want to differentiate because I need to display the all data. But when I'm like searching the result or contact, that time I want to pass the search or enter string only. So how I will differentiate? JS input JS data. So in this case, in case of search, I will get whatever I'm typing. In case of default load, I will get the function name. Let me show you that. Let's refresh it. We have got this because this method was called when I'm loading the component. Now let's type something. So this time I'm getting whatever I'm typing because I have to differentiate if I want to reuse the same code. I don't want to write another portion of the code in case of search. So what I'm doing, whatever the code I have in my JS, I had put that in the helper and I want to use that as a utility. I will be going to put some conditions so that I can differentiate when this method is being called and what some sort of response it should return. So to differentiate that, I will be going to use. Now go to the server, go to the JS helper, and here I need to pass the parameter action dot set params, and we have to update this function as well. string search str. Save it and copy the same attribute name search str. What I will type this. I will assign this GS data which I'm getting from the GS controller. Okay, and I will segregate this here. If this string equals to my hardcore data, as I have shown you, I'll show this as with the example of label. This is I'm passing, right? I'll compare here. If that is the scene, I can directly return that. Else means if something else in this string. So what I'll do, I will be going to put the condition here where name like that string. Let me create the pattern one plus this, and let's create the list. It's saved. All right. Let's refresh it. See what changes happens. We are getting the data. If I type something here, my search is working. Again, if I type something, my search is working. So this is how your code is going to work, and you can implement the same thing conditionally. And like initially you might have some doubts, like how you can or why we need helper. We need helper because we can optimize the code, we can remove the data redundancy or code redundancy here, basically code duplicacy. What we are doing here, we are putting the same code in helper and we are making the two different calls conditionally. Now let's say if we do not have the helper, what would have been the scenario? We would have written the entire code in JavaScript function here, and we would have made the call. But now we are segregating both the portion. We are putting some code in helper and we are making that, we are reutilizing this code, and we are getting the data on UI.